Title: I traveled a long trip with my friends. The road is horror. It was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime. A cross-country road trip with my two best friends, Ethan and Sarah. We'd been talking about it for years, always daydreaming about the open road, the places we'd visit, and the stories we'd tell. But nothing could have prepared us for what lay ahead. The terror that would follow us the moment we left the city limits. We were supposed to drive from our small town to the coast, through back roads, highways, and small forgotten towns. It was supposed to be a beautiful trip, until we hit the stretch of road no one ever talked about. It started innocently enough. The sun was shining, the playlist was perfect, and the open road was waiting. We were driving through a stretch of highway that cut through dense forest and rolling hills. Ethan was behind the wheel, Sarah next to him, and I was in the back, sprawled out in my seat, scrolling through my phone. We'd been driving for hours when we noticed something odd. It was late afternoon when the sky began to darken faster than it should have. The sun seemed to be swallowed by the thickening clouds, and the forest around us grew unnaturally silent. The trees, tall and twisted, looked like ancient sentinels, watching us pass by. "I don't like this," Sarah said, glancing out the window. Her voice was tight. "This place feels wrong." I tried to laugh it off. "It's just a stretch of road. You're being paranoid." But even I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. Ethan glanced at the gas gauge. "We need to stop soon. We've got about half a tank left, and we haven't seen a gas station in forever." We drove on, past miles of road that seemed to stretch endlessly into the wilderness. The landscape around us had become more desolate. We didn't pass a single car, not one sign of life. Not a house, not a gas station, not even a street light. It was as though the road had swallowed up everything. Suddenly, Sarah pointed out the window. "Look, there's a sign." We all turned to look. There, barely visible through the thickening fog, was a small wooden sign that said, "Welcome to Hollow Creek." "Hollow Creek," I repeated, confusion creeping into my voice. "I've never heard of it." The sign was old, weathered, and barely hanging on its post. The town it referred to seemed more like a ghost town than a place. There was no mention of it on any map, no online listing, just a strange name carved into a wooden board. But we needed gas, and the eerie silence of the road was unnerving. "We should stop. We need to refuel," Ethan said, pulling the car toward the narrow gravel road that led into the town. As we passed through the town's dilapidated sign, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature dropped, the air grew thick, and the fog wrapped around us like a suffocating blanket. The town appeared abandoned at first, crumbling buildings, boarded up windows, and empty streets. Yet, as we drove deeper into Hollow Creek, we started noticing something unsettling. There were no people, but there were eyes. We couldn't see faces, but the buildings, the trees, the shadows, they all felt like they were watching us. Even the wind had fallen silent, as if the world around us had held its breath. "This is giving me the creeps," Sarah whispered. "Let's just get the gas and go." But as we passed the abandoned gas station, we saw it. An old, decrepit man standing by the pumps, staring at us. His face was wrinkled and pale, his eyes vacant, but there was something wrong with the way he was watching us. It felt unnatural. Ethan rolled down the window. "Hey, do you have any gas?" The man didn't respond at first. Then slowly he spoke, his voice like gravel. "You're too late. You shouldn't have come." We all froze. the blood draining from our faces. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his voice shaking slightly. "You're on the wrong road," the man rasped, his eyes locked onto ours. "This road doesn't let people leave." Before we could react, the man turned and shuffled toward the small, run-down building behind the station, disappearing into the shadows. We stared after him for a long moment. "Let's go," I said, my heart pounding. "Now." But the car wouldn't start. Ethan turned the key again, frustration building. "Come on, start." "Start." The engine sputtered but didn't catch. A sudden, violent gust of wind blew through the town, making the trees shake and the fog thicken. Then we heard it, a low, guttural growl, coming from the forest, followed by a series of bone-chilling screams. They were distant at first, but then they started to get closer. "That's not human," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "We need to leave now." The windows fogged up as the temperature dropped further. The growls grew louder. And then, to our horror, the fog began to move toward us. Shapes began to emerge from the mist. Figures, humanoid but twisted, with long, ragged limbs and eyes glowing red. They were coming for us. Panic hit us all at once. Ethan tried the engine again, but nothing. We were stuck. The figures, no, the creatures, were getting closer. Their mouths stretched into grotesque, elongated grins filled with jagged teeth. And that's when we saw it, standing at the far edge of town. A tall, thin figure, watching us. It was the same as the man at the gas station, but taller. Its body nearly skeletal. Its eyes were hollow, black as night. It raised a hand, pointing directly at us. "Run!" I screamed, but the car wouldn't budge. We had no choice but to flee on foot. We sprinted down the fog-choked street, but the creatures were faster. They were everywhere now, surrounding us. Their screeches echoed in our ears as they closed in. The tall figure loomed closer, moving impossibly fast for its frail body. And then, just as we thought we were finished, a loud, screeching horn blasted from behind us. We spun around, only to see the headlights of a car speeding toward us. The car slammed on its brakes just in time to avoid hitting us. A man, dressed in tattered clothes, climbed out. "You need to get in now," he yelled. We didn't hesitate. We scrambled into the car, and he floored the gas. As the car tore away from Hollow Creek, I looked out the rearview mirror, my chest heaving. The fog was already swallowing the town again, and the creatures had stopped chasing us. But the tall figure remained standing, staring. "I told you not to come," the driver muttered, his voice hollow. "Hollow Creek doesn't let people leave." The car sped through the night, and when we looked back, Hollow Creek had disappeared. Just like that, vanished from the map, lost to the world. The man who had saved us said nothing more, but his eyes were haunted, as if he knew the horrors of the road all too well. None of us spoke the rest of the journey, each of us processing the nightmare we had narrowly escaped. When we finally reached civilization, the town lights flickered in the distance, but I could still feel the eyes of Hollow Creek watching me, waiting for when I would eventually return. Some roads never let you go. If you enjoy the story, subscribe to the channel and like the video and comment your thoughts about this video.